Thanks, Luc.
Welcome, Niklas.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Not as much as we are, because we know what your schedule is. So, Niklas, I thought we could have a conversation. I could try to put in 20 minutes the entire program and ask you what you think of everything. Is that okay? Good challenge?
I don't know how much of an opinion I have about everything, but let's go for it.
So, future of the internet. It starts by the giants. So we have a panel just after Hans actually, on what the giants, so Microsoft, Nokia, Orange, Google, Lauren is going to talk to, think about the internet future. Do you think we need to be a giant to make something big?
I think you said yourself that in order to get all the people together here, you just used word of mouth marketing. You didn't have any big marketing campaigns or direct mails or anything. So I think that's one of the big things, that the big changes of the internet economy. Obviously, that you don't need to be big to become big in a way. You can get a large traction, a lot of users, a lot of customers, and make a really big brand name without being a big company. You can also be by using ecosystems, and this is pretty much what everything what Web 2.0 is about. To not everything yourself, but to collaborate with other companies, you can make a big impact. So.
A big impact, and you've made two already.
Yeah.
So how did you have the idea of making this big impact in the music industry first, and in the telecom industry? Did you envision all the impact you would have on those two industries?
Well, I think when we did Kazaa, we didn't really set our minds so much about the music industry. We thought that let's make a software that is really easy to use, allows anyone to share any type of content, and it seems to be a good idea, and people probably use it. So I think what we try to do is we try to do something which addresses some basic needs of people, some common problems. But the other thing that was important, of course, that these were global services from day one. They didn't require any localization other than translation. And we had an API, so had users translated to 20 languages within like 3 months or something.
You're talking about Skype or
Skype?
Skype.
Yeah. Kazaa, we tried to do the same thing, but we didn't have a good system. But the point is that these are services that anyone around the world could use them, independent of where they were. So we could just scale very, very rapidly. And of course, using distributed technologies, we didn't have any kind of issues with CapEx to buy a lot of servers.
And so, where did you start exactly in Europe? Because I know Skype is everywhere.
Yeah. So when we started Skype, we were basically in 3 different countries when we started developing the product. So we were kind of very much in need of cheap telephony calls ourselves. So we actually tried out all the different internet telephony services, and we couldn't get it to work. So we thought that if we could fix this problem, we could probably make a good business. So we were like.
Is that how you got the idea?
Yeah, well, kind of. We tried to use.
You could not call each other, and you said I have to fix this.
Yeah, it was so expensive to make mobile phone calls. And so we were actually in 3 countries. I was in Sweden and Estonia, Denmark, and then UK, actually 4 countries. So we were like an pan-European telco, but we were not a telco. But then when we launched the service, within a few weeks, we had users all over the world.
So if you look at Europe, which is another frustration, like most of the themes of the internet are dominated by the US, and we have so many US friends here. But like search, of course, to name our partner Google, but we had a leader in e-commerce last minute, or Kelku, Pierre is here too. They were all acquired by US companies. And so Skype was too. You're European, Niklas, so how could you...
So the good thing though with Skype, we're still a European-based company. We're headquartered in Europe. We have our operations in Europe. We have an office in California, but that's basically a regional office to deal with the US market. So we have all our management, software development, operations still in Europe. So we're still a European company. But certainly when we sold the company, there were not any no European companies were in the loop on being interested in acquiring us.
But we're saying we have diversity in Europe, and that's an advantage, but we also have drawbacks like difficulty to raise funds. And so how did you go through all these to build a worldwide leader from Europe? Did you feel it was difficult?
One thing that was actually, for us, was actually an advantage, because if you look at US companies, they're really happy to have an international division, and that international division is taking care of 25% of their sales. So most European companies most American companies are very US focused, obviously US being a very, very big market. But now when we get more and more globalization, there are other markets that becoming more important. So coming from Europe, and specifically I think coming from a small market like a country like Sweden, we're forced to look abroad. I think in like UK, France, and Germany, you don't have the same advantages we have from like really, really small countries, because our home markets are so small, so we have to look abroad. So it's actually, you can turn this disadvantage to an advantage if you like to.
So what advice would you give to all of us to do the same? Because
I would kind of forget about your home market, and don't forget about your home market as a reference. You need to look at like the other markets and try to make your products that are working really well in different markets. And if you're a software developer, make sure you have Unicode and all those kind of things, so that people in China and other places can use the products.
So should we start in English, all of us? Did you start only in English?
Yeah. Of course.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Well, that will be popular amongst some French people around.
But it's one of it. When you start having kind of editorial content and everything, it's very, very difficult to do localization. But when you have very simple software, it's very easy to translate. But web service is much more challenging.
Do you think Hans Rosling, who's just here, will address us in a bit on globalization? So I guess it's quite obvious that we're getting into a flat wall, just to quote this fantastic book by Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. But so do you think we'll all speak only English in 50 years or 100 years?
No clue. I don't think so. But obviously English becoming more and more the dominant language for internet businesses. And all businesses, not all business, but a lot of businesses, which is specific, like anything that has to do with internet and bigger businesses are becoming global. And clearly, like English is the lead language for that. And you can think that's good or bad, but that's just reality.
Do you think it makes the world better to have it in a global, kind of village? We are all here from 37 countries, or
I think
it's a threat? In France, there are some people sometimes who think it's a threat.
I think it's a great opportunity. You get much more transparency, and from a business point of view, it's great because you can you have bigger markets, but also it also enables people from places which don't have as good education and a good economy to compete with anyone else. You have so we're sitting here in Europe, and we're not competing with each other. We're competing with people from India and China and Japan and Brazil and other places. So today we have a completely global competitive market, which I think is fantastic, but it also gives opportunities for people in those developing countries to do better.
You mean France?
No, for people it gives an opportunity for people in countries which have not as good economy as we have here to compete, and that's ultimately good. And I think that if you're trying to be protective, that's just a recipe for failure. You need to be try to find what advantage you have, and like open up borders and use global trading.
Niklas, we have a panel. Will there be a Web 2.0 bubble? What's Web 2.0 for you?
So I think here we are at 12, so we're already at 3.0. So I don't know. I mean, it started to be more of like a label, right? And as you said, now we have 1,000 people up from 500. So you see some kind of exponential growth over time. These conferences, there's always a sign of a hype. But I think
of a hype.
Of a hype. No, there's the sign of a hype. I think the big difference this time compared to 6 years ago is that today we have the infrastructure built out. Year 2000, we're still kind of on dial-up connections. So very few people have computers. Today we have so much. The infrastructure is there. So we also shown proven a lot of successful companies. Internet startups, from 10 years ago, become really, really big companies. So certainly you can build sustainable businesses on the internet. So there's absolutely not the same kind of bubble situation that I had last time. But obviously you always have ups and downs.
We should keep our humility. That was
definitely. When we started Skype 2002, It took us 1 year to close the first fundraising because the investors didn't want to give money to anyone. Today, the investors say it's probably here just like writing out checks. So it's a completely different situation now than it was a few years ago. And I'm sure this is not going to, I'm sure it's going to be a downturn sometime.
So we should be very careful, and I share this with you. So tomorrow morning, we have an entire morning on, well, I've been provocative again, and I apologize for this for the people in the room who are from media, but like all that, the death of the press, the death of radio, and the death of TV. And I had no question mark at the end. And this was, of course, like a joke, trying to be provocative. And I added the question marks, because I don't think it's actually true. But what's your view on the media transformation? You've transformed the telecom industry. How do you see the media evolving?
Well, I think anything that can be digitized will become digitized. So obviously you have you talk about the death of the press. I think that there's always, blogs are fantastic, right? It's you have so much diversity of what kind of news you want to pick up. But there's always going to be a need for in-depth journalism. I think the thing that's kind of a challenge is from a daily press. But
is it that?
No, I don't think so.
In paper?
No, I don't think it's that.
Do you read paper?
Sometimes, not as much as I used to. But I think it's obviously they're going to be challenged, and the daily newspaper is going to be challenged. But it also means like then you have like free newspapers, and you have like more of a quality newspaper, and they're just going to have to find their own markets. And so I don't think it's that.
You disrupted the music industry with Kazaa, the telecom industry. Somebody in the audience, I will not quote for respect, is calling you the Gutenberg of telecom. I think it's quite a good a good adjective. So now you're disrupting or helping disrupt, because it's not true directly, TV with the Venice project. Can you talk a little bit? I know it's super secret. I have a sticker on my laptop.
Did you hear about it? I thought it's supposed to be stealth. So no, basically what we wanted to do was take the best thing of TV and the best things of internet and mix it together. People spend a lot of time in front of TV. People actually, although they have this hate-love relationship with TV, but people obviously spend a lot of time in front of TV. And the other point is that it hasn't really changed much in the 50 years it's been around.
So what will change?
So I think, the internet is great because it's personalization, it's community, targeting, and it's something that's going to be on your terms. So, and the other thing, so the delivering TV over the internet, you can do something which is just much better for the end users, which is good because then you can build a user base. You can also do something which is actually better for the content owners because they can reach the users directly without going through intermediaries.
Oh, so you don't kill the content creators this time?
Absolutely not. The content
you didn't do it.
No, the content creators are kind of the ones who are actually always benefiting from digitalization and the internet. And what we've seen, like with file sharing, for example, was in the short term, it was like a turmoil, and they didn't really know how to deal with it. But now that the record companies coming out of this saying, oh, the internet's actually a good thing. It can increase sales. It can make develop new business models, new forms of music content.
But don't you think we like to be passive in front of TV? Do we really want to be buying stuff, interacting, having community all the time? Couch potatoes, will they disappear?
So, yeah, well, a little bit more intelligent couch potatoes maybe. I think there's a probably middle ground where people still want, TVs are great because you get everything you stream to you, but people want to be able to have some intelligence in that those channels are coming to you.
To finish with Niklas, we have the entire afternoon, and of course Mr. Shimon Peres coming is a surprise for us, but we have this conversation around democracy and around politics, around freedom of speech with a panel on China in the afternoon on Tuesday, tomorrow. Do you see a disruption in politics? Do you think something will change? Is there a shift in power, like Thierry Crouzet is calling this the fifth power?
I don't know, but one thing that what the internet is doing is providing transparency to to businesses. We know who are running internet businesses know that you have to be completely honest with your audience you cannot try to fool them because they will find out and it will be all over in blogs and message boards. And I think that we can apply the same kind of transparency to politics with the internet.
But you think so? Because I had met a few recently, politicians, and honestly, it's very difficult to get them have total transparency, right?
Yeah.
They tell you what you want
But
to
it has
hear.
to start with the audience. It has to start with with the people that they demand the transparency, and they use the internet to call their bluffs and to keep them honest.
So like, Kazaa, Skype and Venice project, if you woke up, next week or in the next 6 months and say, oh, we change that, let's change politics now, how would you start?
I think that's, you're going to be better at that.
Well, probably not, but
yeah.
How do you see this power shift? Do you think it's really happening, or is it just buzz?
So, we had an election in Sweden this year, and then we thought that the internet would really play a huge difference, but it really didn't do that yet. So, although it started to happen more and more that the internet is being used. But I think that obviously, like if you look at in each country, you have like social networks and which are really big, have a very big audience, and they could probably be used. And I'm surprised I haven't seen any politicians who are embracing these tools and say just getting a lot of.
In Sweden, you mean?
No, it hasn't happened. I thought that would happen in Sweden this time, but it didn't.
How about freedom of speech?
Well, obviously,
Skype is working in China, right?
Yes, it works everywhere. So that is a good example of technology that allows anyone to communicate with privacy. So that's we have a lot of NGOs around the world using Skype. I think it's really good. One, because it saves them a lot of money when they're out in Africa or wherever they are, but also that there is no one who's kind of eavesdropped on. So it's actually a good example of freedom.
But do you think the internet, not like Skype only, but like the internet generally, will make it more difficult for non-democratic countries to exist and manage the countries and the people, protect the information the way they do?
Definitely, yeah.
Will they
happening.
disappear? Dictators? No more dictators?
I don't know. I think that the internet is a very good democratization mechanism for certain.
Niklas, thank you so much. Please help me thank Niklas for sharing his talk. Thank you. Thank you, Niklas. Maybe you should I'm sorry, Lauren, I got confused here. Niklas, thank you so much for being here, and you're here until noon, right?